Hey y'all, welcome to Parent Empowerment with Mandy Drogin. I'm Mandy. I'm just a mom sitting down with real Texas parents having real conversations about what's going on in our schools. Today, I have a returning guest, Mr. Rob McClelland. He is a trustee from Dripping Springs ISD, and he is also on the board of directors for the Texas State School Safety Center. He is here to talk all things school safety, but really he's here just as a dad to talk about the future of Texas. Rob, thanks for being here.
Mandy, it's nice to be back with you.
So, it's been a big year.
It's been a big year. Busy year.
Not only did you truly push forward some major institutional changes in many of these organizations that influence our school districts, but you also joined, because of your love of safety issues, you joined the Texas State School Safety Center.
I did.
How exciting. Congratulations.
Thank
and that's
you.
an appointment from Governor Abbott.
It is. Absolutely privileged to serve the state in this way. Just joined, so I'm learning a lot about what the center's doing, what we're doing more broadly in the state of Texas for school safety, which is a lot, and we're going to talk a lot about that today. And so, yeah, absolutely, it's a privilege to serve, and that's how God built me. And I will do everything I can. And this is something we're going to talk about today that I'm very passionate about. As my time as a veteran, obviously serving our country and providing safety and security for the country. And then also, my time at the White House, where I work very closely with the Secret Service and protecting the president, and so on and so forth. And so I care a lot about this, especially in my now new capacities that I've been appointed to. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, Governor Abbott made a great decision. And so for our guests, can you tell them what you do? What is the purpose of the Texas State School Safety
Sure, Mandy. It's a critical component, right? So it's really in partnership with the Texas Education Agency, Texas Commission on Law Enforcement, and the Texas School Safety Center, which is the research and training arm, essentially, for all things school safety in the state of Texas. And so it's an agency that provides all types of different training, whether it's in-person or virtual trainings for those interested in or participating in school safety. It provides extensive research into all facets that are important for school safety, case studies, and so on and so forth. We hold an annual conference that we just happened in San Antonio, which was my first time there. 7,000 plus law enforcement officers, school administrators, school marshals, school guardians from across the state coming together, learning from each other, case studies, things that are working, things that we can improve across the state of Texas. Okay. And so it's a critical agency, and of course, not here to speak on behalf of them today, but it's a privilege to have been appointed by the governor to serve with them.
That's wonderful. Well, thank you. From the moms and dads of Texas with kids in public schools and public charter schools, we are grateful that you're there and using your skills and experience to serve our kids.
You're welcome.
So, so this is a huge issue. The top issue, in fact, when we're polling, which somewhat surprised me, but not, having littles in school right now, and obviously seeing the, atrocious acts that have occurred in the past. Is that the most important thing when parents are sending their child to school? The polling shows that it's not to get an education. That was second. It is to make sure that they send them to a safe environment. And you're really charged with making sure that all of the districts across Texas are in compliance and or know how to utilize the massive amount of funding that just came from the legislature to implement the programs that they are eligible for and or should be pursuing to be in compliance with their school safety, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And so you're 100% right. And the polling is indicative of how parents feel. I, as a dad, feel similar, right? You can't have excellent student outcomes. You can't continue to raise the bar of education in the state of Texas, whether you're in a public school, a charter school, a private school, et cetera, without having safe and secure schools. Right. And that's safe and security from the worst catastrophic scenario, which would be an active shooter scenario, to the day-to-day discipline on a campus, right? Dealing with the drug epidemic and vaping that's happening across the state, right? All of those things are important components of school safety, and it's right for our parents to feel highly connected and concerned about those things.
So let's then talk about what is being done to ensure that our most precious gifts from God are safe when we turn them over and put them in the hands of others. So what is going on? What has the legislature done? And then how does that affect what is being enacted at our actual school campuses?
Sure, Mandy. Let's dive into that. So first, let's talk about at the state level, and I think we work our way down to local implementation, because that is where, now, as a local school board trustee, I have a lot of say in those types of things, and each school board does. So let's start at the state level. So in the 88th legislature, a important piece of legislation was passed called HB 3. It covered a lot of things, but primarily there was a lot of information in there, a lot of requirements, and the main requirement was the addition of and the compulsory requirement for every school campus across the state of Texas to have an armed officer at that campus. And this was big. And I was a big advocate for this long before the law came out. I actually ran for school board on this because I thought that's how important I view that it is. Let me just do a little quick soliloquy. I fundamentally believe, as a parent, as a dad, and as a man who's spent a lot of time in security and safety across the military and churches and the White House, et cetera, the best way to prevent and to neutralize the worst case scenario, which is a bad guy with a gun wanting to hurt kids, is to have a good guy with a gun get to him as fast as possible.
Amen.
Right? And
I'm
so
with you.
it's fun. It is proven case study after case study.
Yes.
It is proven scenario after scenario. And so we just first need to just acknowledge that there's a lot of variables in school safety. But at the end of the day, when we're talking about neutralizing the most catastrophic threat to schools, that is the solution. So the state in the 88th legislature wisely passed, in my opinion, HB 3 that required every campus to have an armed officer. Now, what the legislation said is that needed to be a school resource officer or some commissioned peace officer, right? Okay, so that's good. And they gave $15,000 per campus and about $10 per student in that district to cover the cost of that. Well, two big challenges with that, Mandy. First challenge with that is there's not enough police officers in the state of Texas. Simply put, right? Districts can't hire enough that have their own ISD police force, and local sheriffs, constables, or local police departments just simply do not have the law enforcement officers to facilitate that requirement. Secondarily, $15,000 per campus, while helpful, does not near cover the bill for that, right?
What is it roughly? What is the ish?
Ish is about $75,000 per campus that it costs, whether you're doing a Marshal program or an SRO program. And sometimes you can cost share with the municipality, which we do in our district. We actually cost share. That's an arrangement with the local county where we're able to cost share the cost of an SRO, which we appreciate greatly to help offset some of those things. So there's a lot of...
So you went to the county. I want to make sure, because I want to go into...
Let's dive deep.
So you went to the county and you said, we are going to put armed officers on every campus.
That's correct.
This is the money we have.
That's
We're
correct.
prioritizing this. And you requested, or they offered, whatever it was, someone said, we will cost share. What does that mean?
Yeah, so it's basically an interlocal agreement that you would have, or a memorandum of understanding, with the local sheriff's office, local police department, to where the different entities make up part of that bill, right? So we got to keep in mind too, for a policing entity like the sheriff's department or a local police force, there's great benefit from being able to have officers in schools to investigate crimes, investigate drug offenses, arrest, do things that are critical when student behavior leaves the area of discipline, which administration handles, into the areas of criminality, right? So there's a great benefit to that for both agencies, both the school district and municipality, right, in a city or community. And so there's opportunities there, and I would encourage those who haven't engaged in those with their local commissioner's court, with their local city council, to engage in those opportunities for cost sharing to cover HB 3 requirements for a peace officer in every campus.
Great. Okay. Keep going. I wanted to. So I want to make sure that you're explaining everything because it's fascinating,
for sure,
and incredibly important, especially as we know that a lot of districts are looking at budgets and obviously this has to be the top of the priority list.
It certainly is for me, and it was in our district, and it is for parents.
Yes,
and in our district, that's why we were quick to implement, right? But,
so that's a great option is the cost sharing. So keep going.
The cost sharing is a great option. So, but the reality is, like I talked about, getting an armed peace officer in every campus. Let's just call that almost a bridge too far, right? So the state wisely, the state legislature, wisely, came up with what's called a good cause exemption.
Okay.
And the good cause exemption allows school districts to implement either a school marshal program or a school guardian program that allows you to be in compliance with HB 3 and have an armed person or armed employee. I'll go into the difference here, big difference in distinctions, on every single campus.
Okay.
And so that's called the good cause exemption. And each local school district gets the opportunity to determine which program they implement and how they implement said program.
Got it. Okay. So it's get an officer, a peace officer.
Correct.
Okay. or you said the Marshal program or the Guardian program.
That's right.
Let's dive into the Marshal program. What is the Marshal program?
The Marshal program is essentially deputizing and hiring and deputizing a district employee that is solely focused on the safety of that campus.
Okay.
Typically, again, so we implemented this in our local district. We actually have what's called a hybrid approach. I don't want to be too confusing here. It's basically taking SROs and marshals and combining them in your program.
Well, you have a very large district.
We similar. We're almost at 10,000 students,
That's
right?
a large
So
district.
we're in the state of Texas, I guess. Yes,
It's a large
is
district.
large. Yes.
Okay. So I just wanted to make that distinction. That's Dripping is a large district.
About 10,000 kids. Yeah.
Right. That's a lot. So that's why that you've gone the hybrid method of hiring some officers and then also utilizing the Marshal program.
Exactly right. Yep.
Is it typically the officers are being put at the higher level, the high school?
Secondary campuses.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
So that makes sense. That's where you're getting more of the criminality, as
right.
you said.
Yep.
Okay. So a lot of the actual officers are being put at the secondary campuses. And then for the protection, where you're not doing as much probably investigative work, dealing with as much extreme violence or
None
things
of those
like
things.
that.
Yep.
Right. You're putting them at the lower campuses.
Yeah, elementary campuses.
Yeah.
Let me dive in a little bit deeper there. So we decided that we're going to implement this hybrid approach, and we're going to facilitate school marshals, district employees that we put through extensive training, 80 hours of initial training on that like things like the school safety standard, Texas Commission on Law Enforcement help facilitate.
Okay.
Right. We actually, our county now is helping facilitate additional training for school marshals, which as we've expanded the program out across the county to help bring these folks on. So we've just hired our fifth in our community. And let me tell you, let me give you an example of how this can work. Right. Every single marshal that we have was a former law enforcement officer. The average experience level is 20 years.
Wow.
Right? And so that level of experience actually exceeds most of the experience we have even with our school resource officers. So let me make sure I give my SROs credit. They're amazing. Yeah. We love our SROs. However, the initial concerns were, well, we're just going to get anybody off the street to be a school marshal, and that's going to be dangerous for kids. That is something that is out there. Let me tell you, sure, can that happen? Yeah, if you don't hire right. Right. But we were fortunate, and a lot of communities across Texas. Like, how many law enforcement officers have retired in the state of Texas because of the, kind of all the different things that we're having with law enforcement, right? And how law enforcement gets treated. They're leaving the profession, if not as much as teachers were post-COVID. It's incredible, right? Yeah. So we knew that environment. We kind of surveyed our landscape. We have a director of safety in our district that's phenomenal, that knew a lot of these people already. They're all former peace officers with extensive training. So we put 80 hours on top of that. We actually sent them to another 24 or 30 beyond that, I believe. And we now have 5 school marshals operating at every single one of our elementary campuses. And let me tell you, it's more than just being ready for an active shooter. Like, these folks are engaging with the kids.
Yeah.
Ours wear they're not uniformed. All right. They wear kind of like some stuff on there so everybody knows who they are. But if you're a bad guy, you don't know who they are. There's that piece, right? Yeah. But they are ready to go. They're fully trained. They participate in joint exercises with law enforcement. That when we do our annual joint exercises, everybody knows who these folks are in our community, and they're door checking. They're making sure that we're fully in compliance with all the TEA requirements for physical security, which is also a critical component. Maybe we'll talk about that later. So marshals are a critical enabler if fully implemented properly. And that's a great program. The other program, Mandy, is the Guardian program, right? Okay. Guardian program, a little more controversial across the state, right? Because this is truly arming an employee of a district, right? Arming a teacher, arming an administrator within a particular campus for the purpose of defending in an active shooter scenario, right? The training for this is closer to 16 to 20 hours, I do believe, for this particular deal. These people are confidential. They don't know who they are. Each district has an opportunity to implement a program in accordance with the law that allows a number of different things to kind of take place, right? If you're a rural school district, and you don't have a law enforcement deputy, county deputy, DPS trooper within 10 miles of you, this is a program that you should consider, right? Because you just don't, you can't wait that long. Right. You can't wait.
Well, you said it. The easier, their stats are there. The best way to stop an active shooter in those rare instances is to have another gun pointed back at them
100%.
as fast as possible.
As fast as possible. And the guardians go through that training.
Right.
They're willing to put their lives on the line. So God bless them. Like those who are serving the state of Texas right now as guardians, God bless you.
Yeah.
Like seriously, that is amazing to want to do that. Most of these people have some type of experience in the past, but that's on a local school district to determine who those people are, how they want to facilitate that program, obviously in accordance with the law and the training that's provided by many of the agencies that we've discussed. But the guardian program, so a lot of people think the Marshal program is the guardian program.
Right.
We're taking the second
things.
grade, I'm just giving an example here, total example, the second grade math teacher, and we're going to deputize them and make them a Marshal.
Right.
That is not the program.
Yeah.
That is not the program. The program is designed to have a specific expertise that is recruited, trained, developed, hired by the senior administration or the school board themselves, brought in for this particular deal, trained specifically in this area, and then basically enact the duties and responsibilities every single day on that campus throughout the course of the school year.
Yeah.
And so I'm a high proponent of the Marshal program.
Yeah.
I love the hybrid approach where we take SROs, put them in secondary campuses or even elementary campuses that may be large or have some challenges that need to be overcome.
Right.
And partner that with a Marshal program to where you can fully comply not only with the law, but also the spirit of what we're trying to do as parents, right?
Yes.
We want schools to be safe.
Yes.
We need good guys and girls
Yes.
in schools ready to protect our kids from people who wish to do harm due to many factors, right? I just call it the evil of the world, right? And these programs facilitate that.
That's wonderful. And that is it. We just want our kids to be safe. When we were growing up, going to public schools, this was not something that anybody even thought about. Honestly, part of it is because I really do. So when I was growing up, our mascot at the high school was the Commando.
Commando.
Yes.
Very nice.
Yes. And
was he did he have all the bullets going down his deal?
Yes, he did. If you pull it up.
Oh, yeah.
It was. And
Look
it
at
was it holding the gun. And it was because when our high school started, this was in Tennessee, and Vanderbilt graciously donated all of their old football and athletic stuff.
Right.
And so we just took it. They had the C because they were the Commodores on everything. And so our school community, they just adopted everything. And huge, 20-foot mural in our gym is a guy. It looks like Rambo.
I mean, that's a good deterrent.
So it's terrible.
I don't know if I'm going to advocate for every school in Texas to put a commando at the door.
All the boys that I grew up with went hunting, and I don't know that we still were. I don't think they were not allowed to bring. We did not have the guns, their weapons up in the back of their trucks. But I know my parents' class did and stuff like that. And you know what? You didn't have school shootings.
We didn't have this problem when I grew up, and I mourn that for our kids today.
I do.
I mourn it, right? The lockdown drills that we do.
That
right?
was, I remember getting that parent pit in my stomach. The first, we were notified that they were going to do an active shooter drill. And I just was like, and it was something that just absolutely broke my heart that here's where we are. And yet
it is
you
sad.
have to go do it.
We have to. And so really this program is really designed when you're talking about armed officers at campuses, right, to not only deter, number one, deter.
That's what it does,
right? You know, in the state of Texas, every school's got this, right? It's like why home invasions in Texas are lower than a lot of other states.
Correct.
Why is that? What are most people doing in Texas? We're packing.
Yeah.
Right? And so if people know you're packing, they're less likely to break into your house in the middle of the night, right? Or at any point, because, man, I probably won't walk away from that one, right?
Right.
Okay, so we do something similar in our schools, but in this case, just sending a homeowner with a shotgun is one thing. We actually have trained, competent, capable individuals who've committed their life to serve the community and their kids in this way. It is an enabler.
Yes.
It is an enabler. Our parents in our community that I've talked to are thankful that we implemented this program, right? That we have now a comprehensive program. Now let's talk about comprehensive. We could, Mandy, real quick. Let me go off on a piece. So armed officers, super important. Okay. HB3 compliance. By the way, I don't know if we talked about this yet. We're only about halfway there. Right?
We haven't, but I did want you to touch on that.
Let's go there.
So you had mentioned before the show that we only have about half of our campuses across Texas that are actually in compliance, meaning that there is someone that has been trained and is prepared to give their lives to protect kids in worst case scenarios.
That's right.
Only half of them.
About half,
Okay.
approximately half, based on the most recent
Ish.
data that I've seen.
Right.
Yeah,
Yes. No, I get that. Okay. All right. Go ahead and let's talk about that and what is being done so that we can truly address those.
Yeah.
With the three options: the hiring the officer, doing a Marshal program,
Yep.
or doing a Guardian program, or something of a blending of all of them.
So there's some legitimate constraints that school districts and individuals have had to face. And so I certainly don't want to say here, well, all these school districts that haven't done this yet are failing. Well, no.
Sure.
There's some serious constraints. Let's talk about what those are. And the legislature addressed several of them. The first was financial constraints, right? We know that M&O budgets specifically have been constrained, right, for a number of different factors. And the $15,000 per campus that the state had allotted in the 88th legislature, as we know, that's a far cry from the 75 that it really takes to implement a Marshal or an SRO program per campus, right?
Yeah.
So the financial constraints were one of the factors. Now, the 89th legislature just doubled down on financing for school safety.
Great.
It went from $15,000 per campus to $33,000 per campus. That is a huge improvement.
Yep.
And it went from $10 per student to $20 per student based on the ADA average daily attendance rate of the district. That's a substantial financial investment into school safety, and way to go, legislature. That's helpful.
Good job. Yeah,
We're
good job
still a
there.
ways from the 75,000, right?
Sure.
Which means there's still more work to do there. And districts are going to have to look very closely at the additional funding that's coming into the district and make a decision to prioritize this effort, which leads me to the second thing that is a challenge for districts: overcoming the objection. I just talked a little bit about the kind of in a lot of communities, marshals are not understood. There are most parents across Texas, or a lot of parents, I don't know if it's most, I don't have any data on that, are not a big fan of like giving teachers guns and let them go loose in schools, right? That's not a widely popular policy position. I'm just going to go ahead and say that, right? But without understanding the Marshal program, a lot of the objection that school districts have to overcome is like, no, we're not doing that.
Right.
So there's a community sentiment that needs to change to go, oh, wait, these guys are basically cops that work for the district?
Marshal program are people that have experience in law enforcement. Many of them maybe have left, they've retired, they've put in their 20 years, and they go, I want something a little less stressful, chasing down bad guys and getting shot. I want to go work with kids. That's who these people are. They are people with significant experience for the Marshal program.
That's correct. And so, folks, again, assuming you hire those people, which I would encourage every district to look for those people. Yeah. There's also military veterans, military police officers, those types of things that are applicable as well. So overcoming the objection for some is difficult because they have to go in the community and they got to kind of step out going, whoa, there's a difference here. And this is why we're going to do that. And so overcoming the objection for some of these folks is hard. So when you have a community sentiment that's a little skeptical about the implementation, and you have funding challenges where you're going to have to take from M&O and take from other things to apply an implementation of this, that's a challenge, right? And so those are some legitimate challenges that are out there. And so what can we do about it? We can have these conversations. We can educate the state of Texas. We can educate folks. I'm actually going to educate school board trustees in October at a conference about this program.
Good.
And actually walk through step by step how to implement a program like this based on all the resources that the state is providing, the additional funding that the state is providing, the training resources that the state is providing to hire the right people to continue to go from 50% to 60% to 70% to 80%, because once every school in Texas has an armed officer on that campus in some capacity, our kids are safer.
That's right.
Period.
100%. That is it. We want to have someone with the experience and, quite frankly, the commitment who have said, I want to be here and I'm prepared to lay my life down for these children.
That's right.
That's awesome. Well, thank you for stepping into that role, willing to use your expertise and kind of be a part of leading this throughout the state. Because as you noticed, and I hear this as well, and that's why I wanted you here, is because I wasn't sure how y'all did it at Dripping, but I knew that you had a great program. And let's talk about what we can see also, the results of having this armed officer, or if they're in layman's clothes or whatever it is, the first thing that I thought about was I love that they're able to interact with the children.
Oh, big time.
The one at my kid's school interacts, and I love that because it automatically puts a seed of value and appreciation for law enforcement officers.
I think that's a great point.
And that is huge.
Yes.
And you know, in my family, we read books and we talk about them as being, you know, the helpers in the community. We talk a lot about helpers in the community, of who's going to be there for you, who you can trust. And as you noted, unfortunately, just the sentiment that is not the majority of people, but they have the people that are, you know, against officers and claim that, you know, defund the police movement and all of that nonsense. It does work its way down into the culture.
It does. And
I think it's so important that kids now are able to make friends with Officer Smith or whatever it is, and see that this is a good person and they're there to be there for you.
It's a great opportunity to inject relationships with law enforcement and or safety specialists, school marshals, whatever it is, to allow children to understand that at the end of the day, law enforcement's there to protect them.
That's right.
Law enforcement's there to keep them safe, right? And so, you know, we have with we call them safety specialists, right? They have nicknames for the specialists. Each campus has got like a little nickname. I'll make up a name because I don't want to, you know, like Safety Dan.
Yeah.
They call him, hey, good morning, Safety Dan.
Yeah.
Right. And the kids know him, and they get to know these kids on an individual level. Right. And they don't know, the kids don't know, especially elementary, that Safety Dan is willing, if bad guy comes in, to put his life for them.
Yeah.
He doesn't know that. The kids don't know that. What they know is Safety Dan is there to look after us.
Yeah.
They know Safety Dan cares about us, right? You look at other communities, maybe some urban communities where law enforcement engagements are challenging with the community, right? I mean, this is an effort of community policing.
Right.
It's opportunities for relationships to build early on, knowing that, hey, man, like, no, I'm here to watch over you.
Yeah.
I'm here to keep you safe. But I'm also at the same time like, hey, let's do the right thing in school.
Right.
Right. Hey, be here on time, Johnny. I know you're late to school today. I know, right?
Yep.
And so there's opportunities, so many opportunities in there. In a number of ways beyond just getting through dealing with the worst case scenario. And with that, let me pivot real quickly if I could. So armed officers, critically important. There's also a huge physical security component to school safety.
Yes.
The state of Texas and the legislature has required that school districts across the state significantly enhance their physical security posture, mainly around two kind of key areas, right? Okay. And that's the installation of secure vestibules for all campuses across the state of Texas, and I'll go into more detail on that. And then also around perimeter fencing and things like that, right? Which is designed to prevent egress to a campus for places that you may not have line of sight or we don't want people coming from. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So school districts, and again, there is some money available for this, which I'll talk about, but this is another challenge because we got to fund all these things. We got to fund all these requirements, right? So districts across the state are also required to implement these things. So locally in our district, we're finishing that up this month. Every school will have a secure vestibule. And what those do, secure vestibules are designed to stop penetration of somebody you don't want into a campus. So you get access to a vestibule, but after that, you can't get anywhere, right? And then there's some things that I won't talk about here publicly that are implemented to prevent and to slow down and to mitigate bad things from happening with a firearm in that area. Yeah. Does that make sense?
That does.
So the state has wisely done that. School districts don't have to pay for that. So you're seeing that included in bonds. You're seeing that included in a number of different things. That said, though, there are also, and I'll tell this for all my school district friends out there, there are substantial grants through the Texas Education Agency that will pay for a lot of these things. In our district, we have millions in grants that we have been awarded. Now that we have to navigate through some of the bureaucracy, but that happens, right? Yep. God bless Texas. And it should. It's taxpayer money, so there should be some oversight, right? But we navigate through those things, and it's helping to pay for a lot of those deals. So for districts out there that are struggling to find the funds or concerned about having to call a bond election to pay for some of these things, I'd encourage you to look at these grants that are available through the state of Texas to help facilitate a lot of these projects.
That's great. That's wonderful to know. Something that I wanted to touch on when we're talking about deterrence, obviously an active shooter is worst case scenario. And we haven't had one of those in a couple of years, praise God. And hopefully all the measures that you guys are working on and that the legislature is trying to fund and all of that will continue to be a barrier for those. And I really do think it is. I think we haven't because knowing that school safety has become a priority, knowing that even if even if it is 40, 50-ish% of campuses that don't have armed guards, if you're that maniacal, if you're that insane that you would even consider going to a school to do harm to children, I don't know that you're doing your research to know exactly which campuses. And so you're probably knowing there's a good chance you might get shot. 50-50 at this point, it sounds like.
Yeah, at this point,
50-50 chance you're going to get shot. But something else that is more prevalent is what's going on, unfortunately, oftentimes in our secondary schools. Some of the criminality that occurs. And so I'm curious, are you all seeing, particularly in your district, where that knowing that there is a marshal, basically a law enforcement officer, and or that you're doing this overlapping with peace officers with the county that is providing an actual officer, are you seeing less activity that is not allowed on college campuses? Are these kids recognizing there's an actual cop here?
Yes. So the short answer is yes. Now, most high schools and secondary campuses in the state of Texas have really already had SROs for quite a long time for these reasons, right? And so right now, there's not a direct correlation to that with this new legislation being passed because it was already in existence, right? And so it's really at the elementary campus level where the implementation is working its way through.
Okay, that makes sense.
But let me tell you this, though. It does help, right? School safety, as we talked about at the top, is more than just preventing an active shooter. That is critical. Has to happen. Got to get better at it. And a lot of good things are happening, right? But also there's the day-to-day safety that's required. That can be more disruptive on the regular than the catastrophic scenario, right?
That's a huge problem.
Right. And so you see schools that don't have good discipline, don't have good safety, right? And you typically look at the academic performance of that school, and it typically correlates. Increase in criminal activity, increase in misbehavior, decrease in academic and student performance, right? We got to work on that too, right, at all of our campuses. And we do that by tightening up on discipline, right? Which is more of an administration function. That is not a law enforcement function. Just so everybody's aware, there's a line between administrative action, dealing with suspensions, expulsions, ISS, DAP, versus a criminal complaint, right? Where there's a number of different factors that could go into that, right? There's a line of demarcation. But it all plays in together. If the campus is safer, if we got physical security measures in place, if we got officers in place, if we got marshals in place, if we got administrators in place that are enforcing discipline, working collaboratively to create that, reducing the drug posture in a campus, I'll tell you, that's one of our biggest problems, vaping.
Putting drugs into the vape pen.
That's right. THC, all these things that are out there. I went to a session at the School Safety Center, a conference, on what is happening with synthetic drugs that are finding their way into these kids. It's readily available across the state of Texas, and I know there's a whole statewide conversation on this, and I won't opine on that. I'm not an expert. I'll leave that to the experts on that. But let me tell you, it's infecting our schools. It is absolutely infecting our schools. It needs to be addressed. We have got to grab arms on this as a state and say, no, we do not want our kids injecting this stuff in their body. We were worried about cigarettes for the longest time, right? Those are gone. Those are long gone. Right. To be honest, from what I'm seeing, this stuff is way worse. It's way more potent. Right, you may not get the smoke and the lung cancer, those types of things, but you are injecting very dangerous things into their body, and what a lot of kids are doing, they're combining these with other things,
right?
And they're creating these cocktails, right? And let's not even talk about fentanyl. Where you want to go with fentanyl? I mean, how many deaths in the state of Texas we have because of fentanyl, right? Fentanyl poisoning. It is in our schools.
It is terrifying.
It is, and it should be terrifying to every single parent out there. If you have not taught your kids about fentanyl, teach your kids about fentanyl. Okay, no, not your kindergarten kid, okay? But
I have a upcoming third grader, and we already are talking about drugs because we're talking about peer pressure. We're talking about you're going to be in situations where people are going to offer you things, and you think it's fun. This already, because it's terrifying. There are kids in elementary school that are dying.
It's one pill and it's over. It's it. And most kids think that it's some other pill, it's some other upper or downer, whatever it is, and it's safe.
Some sort of Zantac.
That's right.
No, that's an allergy.
Xanax. The Claritin, not Claritin. But they take this and it's over.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, this is preventable.
Yes.
This is preventable. I know we're doing a lot of things at the statewide to prevent the inflow of fentanyl in the United States now under the new administration. I know the state is working a lot on those types of things. That is huge.
Yeah.
That's stopping the inflow. But at the end of the day, we got to keep this stuff out of our schools. We have to have a culture in our communities that it will not be tolerated. Yeah. It will not be accepted. Right? And so that is a huge component of this, folks. It goes way beyond just dealing with with active shooters and that. We care a lot about that because
Yeah.
it's a catastrophic scenario. But we're losing more kids to
Right.
these other things.
That's it. That's the
More
whole
kids to these other things.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. Every now and then on social media or whatever, there are things, and it's just devastating.
Yeah.
One pill.
It's heartbreaking.
One pill.
It's heartbreaking, right? And what's equally heartbreaking is you see kids that don't take one pill and it's over. You see them go through the degradation of drug abuse,
Yeah.
right? And they're young and they're 18 or 19 and they're
And they were
fully
ruined their whole
addicted
lives. Right.
to these things, and it typically results, or a lot of times it results in something tragic.
Yep.
That's another lost life. Like for what?
Right.
These things are preventable if we decide in communities across Texas, in the state of Texas, within the law enforcement community, that we're just not going to deal with it anymore.
Yep.
It's fixable. It's preventable. There's a lot of mental illness tied to that. That's a whole nother probably podcast we could do. I'm not an expert in mental illness, but you see it as a huge challenge in dealing with a lot of these things. So it's a complicated problem. It's not going to get solved overnight. But there's a lot of good people, myself excluded. I'm just a dad trying to help do my job, right? There's a lot of way better people than me that are really working hard to fix this. And I thank every single one of them that are on the front lines of this, that are serving, that are finding solutions, that are working through this, that are protecting our border from the stuff coming in, that are serving every day in our schools to keep our kids safe, identify these things, lift kids up, not take kids down. I mean, that is what should try to be doing in this effort. So.
Absolutely. All right. Before we wrap up, I know you're going to do your conference. Well, you just did a conference, but you're also going to speak at a TASB conference,
Yep.
and you're leading the school safety, which means you're going to have 99% of school boards that send trustees there that can talk and hear and learn about what you're doing, both at Dripping Springs, but what you're doing on the Texas School Safety Center.
Across the state,
But I want you to look into the camera, and I want you to talk to the parents of Texas, those that are showing up at the school board meetings, those that are wanting to know, maybe their kids are at a campus and they haven't seen an officer. They don't know about this going on. They're in that 50% of campuses. Talk to them and tell them again what the options are and what they need to be encouraging and supporting their trustees to get done in their districts.
For sure, Mandy. And hi, everybody home. So here's what I'll say. First, be an engaged parent. This is the Parent Empowerment Podcast. Mandy, by the way, you've done a great job with this thing and growing this and engaging a lot of topics. You really have, and I'm proud of you.
Thank you.
But get engaged with your kids. Even at a young age. You talked about third grade, right? Be involved and engaged in their interactions, who they're interacting with. If they're isolating themselves, that could be a problem, right? So first, it starts with us as parents. We have to engage and be with our kids. And so I encourage everybody to do that. It's critical. And that's to be able to solve a lot of the root cause of the problem just by doing that as good, effective parents. The secondly is get involved in your community. Right? Ask some good questions, right? Hey, are we where we need to be from a school safety perspective, right? I guarantee you that most, if not all, districts are working hard to try to align themselves with the law and also do what's best for their kids. And I believe in positive intent. So I believe that. Look to be part of the solution, right? Hey, are we there? How can we help? What do we need to figure out? How, do we need to go recruit some people to come in and live in our community to serve in these Marshal positions? Whatever it is. That is how we're going to do this. Us as parents, we're in charge of our kids' education, number one. But number two, we also need to be part of the solution in driving school safety and what's best for the kids across the state of Texas. So I just encourage you in that. Engage with your kids. Engage yourself with your local community, because this is where the rubber meets the road eventually in regards to the safety of their kids. And also volunteer. Be present. Join the local school organization. Come on out there. Support your education foundations. I would encourage you to do that all as well, whether you're in a private school, whether you're in a charter school, or a public school. There you go, Mandy.
Rob, thank you for
You're welcome.
leading with your heart. You bring such a wealth of knowledge and experience, but it's your love of kids, your own kids, the kids in your community, and the kids of Texas. We're so grateful for you being here, talking about what you're doing to keep our children safe. So thank you for that. And thank you for sharing that with the trustees all across Texas. Thank you for joining us today on Parent Empowerment with Mandy Drogin. And now you have the power.